and that's not an easy route to get to Vegas for the Super Bowl. So it is important that hopefully the Eagles figure this out and step up and come away, figure out the offense. And I think the defense, if they can get some of these secondary pieces back, I think they'll figure it out. But, they're also not going to be going up against like Baker Mayfield. While he's 2-0 for the first time, I think, in his career, he's not that good. Zach Wilson, not that, or Sam Howell, I don't think is that good, but Eric Bieniemy has that offense running. Zach Wilson's not that good, but they do have Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, but their offensive line's also a little banged up and not that good. And then Dallas, like, it's definitely going to be, be interesting. There's the potential that both the Eagles and the Cowboys could be undefeated going into the game when they play, and that would be a huge game at the Link. You can only imagine. I think it's a Sunday nighter, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously we don't want to look ahead, but they have to, offensively, I trust Jalen. I don't think he has regressed. It's going to be tough for him to play like he did last year. Let's be honest. Like, last year was ridiculous. I don't know if we should anticipate that, but they have to start figuring it out. And something that didn't bother me, or it didn't bother me at the time, it still hasn't, and Nick Sirianni talked about it. When Jalen and AJ kind of got into it on the sideline, that's like brothers fighting. Like, it happens. But you can
and I don't blame AJ Brown. Like, his usage has been questionable.
Before that, they were running the ball down Minnesota's throat. Going into the fourth quarters when that happened, and they came out and threw the ball to AJ like 3 straight times, and ended up, I don't think they put points on the board, or they had to kick a field goal, I forget. So that's a little like they went away from their bread and butter in the game to try to acquiesce to AJ Brown, who had a touchdown on a weak, and then that got called back on a weak call, holding call. Another one that he should have caught, but it was a PI that they didn't throw the flag on. So that's my only worry, is that, like, they went away from running the football to throw the ball to AJ Brown. I hope it doesn't happen too often, and I don't think it will. AJ will have his games. Devontae is really good, as AJ has stated. He's going to get his numbers. Dallas is going to get his. AJ is going to get his. DeAndre got his. So he needs to be patient.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. AJ Brown has to be patient. You're in an offense that is going to spread the ball around, and it's not always going to be games where the passing offense is even the focal point. I mean, we saw, like, they easily could have ran the ball more, but like you said, they kind of moved over to right after that possession and went to AJ Brown on a couple consecutive plays, and they ended up going, I think, like you said, missed a field goal or went 3 and out. Like, you don't, and everything was going so well, just running the ball down their throats, and you should be in it to win it. Where as a team game, you should be in it to win it, and it was extremely effective going to the ground. DeAndre Swift had a huge night. If Boston Scott was healthy through the whole game, I think Boston Scott was going to be due for a really big night as well, because he was he ended up 5 carries for 40 yards. He was on his way to having a really good night, going with a 1-2 punch with DeAndre Swift. So I mean, it's disappointing that they went that route. And kind of maybe took the wind out of the sails when they were doing so well running the ball. But at the end of the day, hopefully, they move on from this, and they'll be able to take it to another team. And, if we just don't want it to be like what did the 2 years ago, where it was all running, and you mentioned every single week that you cannot win a Super Bowl by just running the football. That, like, as long as we don't take that much of a step back and do that, and where we're running where 200 yards and passing for 100 yards and barely squeaking games out, that's just, I don't want to see that happen again. But I mean, this game warranted just continuing to hand the ball off over and over and over, because DeAndre Swift, we haven't even gotten into talking about him all that much, but 28 carries for 175 yards, and the way he sees that field, the amount, how many times did he not see something inside, or didn't like the whole bounced outside and ended up with 10 plus yards? It was crazy. The breakaway yardage that he was getting, the way he sees and hits holes or bounces to the outside, his burst, he's head over heels better than Kenneth Gainwell. So I hope that with this week, they will split. I get they're going to still split it, but I hope that it leans in favor to DeAndre Swift, because that was one of the things. There was two things I said coming out of that first game. Needed to see DeAndre Swift more involved. The one carry was not enough. The targets weren't enough. It was pathetic how they tried to use him. This showed why you use him max to the max that you can, because he is going to get better and better and more effective. And that's how it felt as the game went on. There was smaller runs at the beginning with some chunk plays thrown in. As the game went on, by the second half, it felt like it was just chunk play, chunk play, chunk play. There was no short yardage ones.
Eagles haven't had a running back that had vision like that since Shady, easily.
It was impressive watching him bounce out. It was like, oh no, he's stuck, and he would make the decision to go out, and he was just, the way he was making people miss, the way he was just seeing the field. I mean, and we know like DeAndre Swift, he's really good. The biggest concern out of Detroit was they ended up deciding to go with Jahmyr Gibbs, and they didn't. And it kind of felt like DeAndre and then David Montgomery, but it kind of also felt like DeAndre Swift, they didn't trust him anymore because they didn't trust he could stay healthy. That's why I think it's important to have the balance. If a running back is having a game like this, you don't have a balance. You let this man continue to run down the throat.
Swift's not going to carry the ball. Swift's not going to carry the ball 28 times every week. It's just not going to happen.
No, it's just not feasible.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. I feel like that Rashad Penny could be gone soon. Like, they really don't trust him that much. And he only had to get a couple carries because Scott got hurt. And again, I don't understand why they like Scott. That still bothers me. But and the offensive line looked better. So it was weird. The offensive line was better this week than they were week one. The tackles were really good. Like, Jordan Mailata got graded the highest in what?
Still, the interior of that offensive line is where the concern is.
I don't know if that's Juergens, but it's also happening with Dickerson too. So like, I have no idea. It's weird. They definitely have to figure it out, because going up against Tampa, Vita Vea is really good. Like, they're probably not going to be able to run against Tampa the way they ran against Minnesota, at least up the middle. So they're going to have to figure it out, be able to get the passing game going. Now, after watching, I don't know if you had a chance to see what the Colts did. Again, now it was against Houston, but Shane Steichen called a couple really creative plays with Anthony Richardson when he was out there, and Gardner Minshew was still able to move the ball as well. And when we look at what Brian Johnson is doing with the Eagles offense, it still seems vanilla. Haven't seen any creativity. When I watched Miami on Sunday night, they use all that speed. Mike McDaniel gets creative. I need to start seeing that from Brian Johnson. I don't know what he's waiting for. I get it. He hasn't called plays in the NFL. He's only done it 2 weeks, but he needs to start opening it up. Like, this was the first game that Jalen Hurts has completed 2 50-plus yard passes in his career, which that's good. Let's continue to see him throw the ball down the field. But you need to get creative with all the weapons you have at the offensive skill positions.
Yeah, like we talked about right before we came on here, how I was really disappointed with their use of Dallas Goedert. You have a guy who can be a major mismatch in the middle open part of the field, and you're throwing him the ball from 0 to 5 yards. I think 3 of the passes that he caught out of the 4 were right at the line of scrimmage, and they just kind of said, here you go, see what you can do. I get it. Dallas Goedert is a yak monster. Last year he had more yards after the carry than he had air yards. He was creating on his own extremely well, but to the same point, it doesn't feel like they're using him in the open field as a mismatch that he can be to help open up the field for this offense, which I also think is a attributing factor why AJ Brown is not getting the looks. Although on that interception, when you watch that interception over, he forced the ball to Devontae Smith when just over his shoulder, you could see AJ Brown had a stride on the defender that was on him. All Hurts had to do was have the anticipation to put the ball ahead for where he knew AJ Brown could get it. And AJ Brown would have definitely made that play, and it could have probably made a house call. Or better yet, Dallas Goedert was open in the flat as well. When they showed the replay, those two were wide open opportunities, and he tried to force the ball into Devontae Smith, which at the end of the day, I get it. Devontae Smith's really good. He's been your favorite target. He's doing really well. But that doesn't mean not to go through all your reads and make sure you don't see something better out there. Because on that play, there was 2 better options that he could have went to. And one of the options was just over top of where he was going. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So And yeah, as far as the offensive line goes, really struggling to figure out what it is. I mean, when you look at it, they gave 3 pressures to Landon Dickerson and 1 to Cam Jurgens, so they didn't even give up a ton of pressure. But it just didn't feel like there was a couple false start plays that are, not of the ordinary play for the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. There was some pressures I think they didn't attribute that probably could have been attributed to somebody. It doesn't feel like it's all jiving and clicking yet, but the best part is the tackles are clicking. That's what we need, the tackles to click, because those are the most vital. You can kind of work more with the interior, but way easier, for way better if the tackles are working and you can work on the interior.
That's where you're going to see Bosa and Parsons, and like you're going to see all the pass rush. Shaquille
Chris Jones, because now he's playing.
Well, he's inside. He's a tackle. He'll be over the guard.
He goes he goes anywheres, but yeah, true.
But yeah, Amani Bentley, go Birds. And then we're going to be talking Eagles Buccaneers on Friday, Amani, but 45-10, I would take it. I'm not sure I'm going that score just yet. Dave, what's up? What's up, bud? Nice for you to join us as we are talking the Eagles Vikings game, which the Eagles won 34-28 last Thursday night. This schedule that the Eagles have is just crazy. They had the unfortunate, if they didn't play on Thursday night, Reed Blankenship, Kenny Gainwell, James Bradbury, they all would have played on Sunday. They just got unfortunate, but now they get they get an extra day, get 11 days rest. I hope, like I said, I hope it is 45-10. The offense needs to get going. I know they put up 34 points, but it still feels stagnant. The offense still doesn't feel like it's there just yet. Let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball for the Eagles. They forced 4 turnovers, if I'm not mistaken. They got fortunate. Justin Jefferson fumbled out of bounds. The dumbest rule in all of football, which benefited us. So I was happy, but I hate that rule. If it goes out of bounds, it should still stay with the offense. If it goes out of bounds in the end zone, it should stay with the offense. It shouldn't go to the defense. I disagree with that rule, but it did benefit the Eagles. Justin Jefferson had a big day, over 150 yards receiving. We mentioned how he was probably going to have a big day. Do you have the numbers on what he did against Slay? Because I remember last year he had 1 catch for 7 yards. I'm pretty sure it was better. Maybe like he had about 70 to 80 yards receiving against Slay, but he didn't.
Darius Slay was 100% of matchups was on Jefferson. It was 8 targets, 7 receptions for 88 yards and 6 first downs. No touchdowns, but I mean, obviously you knew you probably weren't going to replicate that same game as last year. That's like, you don't always get the opportunity to shut a guy down like that and do it so effectively like that. But I mean, when you look at it, 88 yards on 7 receptions, it's only 12.6 yards per reception. It wasn't like a completely debilitating game for Darius Slay, especially when Justin Jefferson got as many targets as he did, because overall Justin Jefferson ended up with 13 targets. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they were peppering Jefferson with targets because he knew that was a guy who was going to make the catch more often than not.
Yeah, and they moved them all around, which we said they would do. TJ Hawkinson had a decent day. He had a touchdown. Addison had a touchdown. Kirk Cousins threw for over 350 yards. So defensively, like, the Eagles held it down. Do you have an issue now? I don't know if you caught it, but I caught it. Towards the end of the game, Nick Sirianni got a little agitated, got very animated with Sean Desai. And obviously I haven't heard anything about it, but when they showed the camera was panning to Sirianni and he was screaming and he was walking by Desai. Do we have any issues with that, or are we still trying? He's still trying to figure it out, because again, you have injured 4 starters, 3 or 4 starters injured. They don't have everybody there yet, so they're still working out the kinks for how the defense wants to get going.
I'm gonna go with the kinks side of this for both the Desai and the AJ Brown instance. AJ Brown's not used to, not seeing the 10 targets or 12 targets a game. Sean Desai's the same thing. Like, we saw him get animated with Gannon in the past as well, rightfully so. But I mean, he's still trying to figure things out. As soon as Bradbury went down and Maddox went down, all you have is rookies lining up behind these guys to take their shot. And the only experience they had was playing second, third, and fourth string guys, half of which aren't even on rosters right now in the preseason. So you have to expect there's going to be some growing pains at the cornerback position as you try and figure things out, especially when you lose two of your starters. There's going to be the growing pains in figuring that out. And I think that's why you see 300 yards given up. Because that's going to cause a lot of damage. So I'm going to go with the growing pains, and they're going to get there. I think they're going to get there. Sean Desai is a really intelligent defensive coordinator, really good defensive coordinator, very much sought after. I feel like just because we couldn't get Vic Fangio, thank you, Jonathan Gannon. I think Sean Desai was probably like pick your poison, second or third best option out there to get. He's super intelligent, well-respected around the league. He's going to figure this out. He's going to get the players in the right positions and leverage them the way they need to be.
And a lot of the defensive coordinators were already picked up because the Eagles went all the way to the Super Bowl. Obviously, Shane Steichen and Gannon got jobs after the Super Bowl. Granted, Gannon probably already had his, leading up to the Super Bowl. And he took the Eagles linebacker coach to become his defensive coordinator, but it is Gannon's defense. A lot of the people, and again, like we said, Fangio pretty much admitted, even though he didn't say it, but he admitted it. Like, he would be the Eagles' defensive coordinator right now if they knew that Gannon was leaving. You
don't bring him back multiple times to consult and not have an intention of wanting to hire him. So that one definitely, it still stings. It's still disappointing. But like I said, I like Sean Desai. He's a great, I don't see him being here for more than 2 years. I think he's going to end up getting his opportunity potentially, unless teams figure out that, hiring defensive coaches as head coaches isn't the way to go. And if they really figure it out, maybe it won't happen. But one other name on the defensive side of the ball who was way leaps and bounds improved over week one was Zach Cunningham. Zach Cunningham looked really good.
Starting. He looked really good.
The linebackers actually didn't look like the weak point this week, when they were definitely a major casualty in week one, especially in coverage. I mean, Cunningham at the end of the day, he still gave, he was targeted 9 times, gave up 6 receptions, but it was only for 36 yards. He only allowed 2 first downs. So he was definitely really effective. And I hope that this continues. I'm hoping that week one was just, shake the rest off and here we go. And I mean, I was surprised when they didn't take Nick Morrow on the team in the first place. I thought he
had him on my
warranted. Well, so did I. I thought he warranted being on the roster for both the special teams ability, and he was actually semi-effective, especially when you're looking at a possibility of him being your third or your fourth linebacker. I thought he was perfectly suited for the position. And then they let him go, and they brought him back, and he looked good, and so did Zach Cunningham. Hopefully that duo can continue to be really effective. I mean, within reason, shutting down TJ Hawkinson, he had a pretty good game, but it wasn't at the fault of the linebackers. It was other players. But I mean, keeping the open part of the field as an area that they couldn't attack and exploit, at least, for the first 0 to 10 yards, because they were able to attack the middle after that. But that felt really good. It built my confidence, but then it made me just look at the safety room and be like, okay, here we go. But you pick your poison, I guess.
Yeah, Howie needs to figure that out. Definitely a weakness, and it can't continue. You can't keep having Justin Evans out there. I'm sorry. Blankenship's going to be a starter. We have to live with it. I'm still not a big fan. Sidney Brown will eventually get out there, I think. And then Edmonds was also out there. So, you can't keep trotting out Edmonds and Evans all the time. Evans definitely isn't a starting safety. Edmonds, I also don't think is a starting safety. So they have to figure it out. Whether it's Budda Baker, whether it's Jeremy Chin, whether it's somebody else, they need to figure it out at the safety position. I want to go to the 2 young defensive tackles. Carter and Davis had really good games. A guy that's reinvigorated right now and this is year 14 for him?
Fletcher Cox.
Fletcher Cox, man. He looks really he knows he has those 2 dogs breathing down his neck, and he has showed up, especially late in games, but in both week 1 and week 2, of making a play when a play needed to be made. And he is showing up and he's showing out. And this is great for the young guys to know, he's in his 14th year. He doesn't have to be out. He probably could just let the young guys go out there because they're fresher and whatnot. But he's I'm taking it upon myself, and we're not losing these games. And he looks really good late in games. And if we can get this Fletcher Cox the entire year, I mean, maybe this won't be a swan song.
Yeah, I think honestly, and he played 44 snaps, which was tops among all defensive tackles again this week. I still think there's room for him to lose snaps and continue to remain fresher. But I mean, he had four total pressures, 3 quarterback hits. Like he was in that backfield I mean, you look at it, it was 36 pass rushing snaps, and he had 4 pressures. So every nine snaps approximately, this guy was in the backfield wreaking some sort of havoc, and he looks faster. He looks, like you said, reinvigorated. Like he looks like he got in shape. I don't know what it is, but he just looks a lot better. And Jordan Davis only played 17 snaps. I think they're ramping him up. I don't think they fully trust Davis to take the reins completely. But Milton Williams has looked pretty good. Jalen Carter's looked amazing. Fletcher Cox has looked amazing. So why rush Jordan Davis if you don't feel he needs to be rushed into it yet? Because the other guys are looking just as good. And you wouldn't even notice Jordan Davis is only out there for 20 or less snaps every game right now, because we aren't complaining about Cox. We aren't complaining about Williams. We're definitely not complaining about Jalen Carter. We're not worried about the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah, and they're stopping the run, and that's not the worry, and that's kind of what Jordan Davis's job is. Another person who I want to see more snaps from, Nolan Smith. He only got 7 this week, or 6 this week, 13 total in 2 weeks. Not sure if they're holding him back. I don't know what's going on, but the edges haven't really gotten after the quarterback. Like
I was gonna say, Hassan Reddick has been very quiet through 2 weeks. Josh Sweat is having an amazing couple weeks.
Adjusting to the thumb cast.
And maybe that could be it, and hopefully it is. But I mean, the only reason I think we're not fixated on the fact that we're not seeing his name on the stat sheet a lot is because Josh Sweat has had an incredible 2 weeks. He had 8 total pressures and 1 sack this week alone. So I mean, and he forced a fumble. So why? Like, we're not even thinking at all about Hassan Reddick, but hopefully Josh Sweat is buying Reddick time to get used to the thumb cast so that he can be out there, week 3, starting to ramp up, in week 4, being the Hassan Reddick we know.
Yeah, and you mentioned Sweat. He had the strip sack, and Fletch almost had a touchdown. That would have been. I love seeing big guy touchdowns. That would have been awesome. But yeah, like Hassan's going to eventually get it going. I don't know when that cast is coming off. Again, it could be bothering him. We'll see what happens, but they're going to be key going forward against some of the offenses that we're going to be going up against. After Washington, maybe Eric Bieniemy kind of knows what kind of game plan he can do against the Eagles after the Super Bowl last year. So that'll be interesting next week after Tampa Bay.
Another name also that I want to see more of is Sidney Brown. Here we are complaining about the safeties. Sidney Brown had 4 total snaps. Like, there's no way you are going to justify to me that Sidney Brown is worse than Justin Evans, or there's something you see in Sidney Brown's game that is that deficient that Evans deserves more time on that football field. You're just not going to convince me, because what we saw in the preseason, and I get it. I said it about our rookie DBs. I get it that, you're playing the second, third, fourth string guys. Half of the guys aren't on teams right now, or they're on practice squads. I get it. But he was laying some big hits out. He was playing extremely well. Justin Evans did not look that good in the preseason when given the opportunity. Sidney Brown played a ton of snaps and looked really good. And I don't know what it is about Smith and Brown, if they're trying to ramp up. But if the play of the safeties continues for a third week the way it has been the week 1 and week 2, you cannot justify to me not giving Sidney Brown more of an opportunity and not shopping around a bit more aggressively than it seems how he is right now.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to talk. We don't really talk them a lot, but talk special teams. They had a turnover on special teams, and Jake Elliott had a 61-yarder. And when he hit that, I put out that he's our MVP right now because he is the special teams. And the biggest,
he missed a 55-yarder, but you don't even think about it because he had such a good game around the 55-yard one.
Yep. And then the biggest news, and it happened after the game, obviously, it happened recently, is Aaron Siposs gone. Braden Mann is the new punter for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I don't know how he's going to play this game, and I don't know if they can do it. I haven't looked into the call up, call down rules, but I don't know if he's going to keep Mann, call him up 3 times, sign another punter, whether it's Siposs or somebody else, call them up 3 times, cut that. I don't know how those rules work, but it's going to be a sight for sore eyes when we get to see Braden Mann out there, and hopefully he doesn't shank his first punt, and then we're like, what the heck? Or he doesn't mess up a hold, because we know, again, Elliott really trusts Siposs. So we hope that none of that goes into or factors into the game Monday night that could cost the Eagles a victory. But the special teams, again, Elliott has been money. Again, he missed one field goal, but that's okay. The punt return team got a fumble. It was bad coverage too, because it was a good return by the Vikings before they got that fumble. And now we have a new punter. What are your thoughts on the special teams?
I think the special teams is better than I expected this year. Although, like, I didn't see
Is that because your expectations were low?
I think it was because my expectations and I mean, I think, like, at this point, Britton Covey, we really need to consider maybe a safety who returns punts, because we really need to get rid of Britton Covey. I vouched for him so much last season. He muffed one of the punts. Thank God Keely Ringo was there to recover it. But otherwise, he's either fair catch, and maybe Howie, that's all he wants is just catch the football for me and you can stay on the team. But I mean, at this point, like, in a game of inches, and that's the New England Patriots about a game of inches. Like, in a game of inches, you want a punt returner who can give you a chance sometimes. And it just feels like Britton Covey's not giving us that opportunity, not giving us that chance ever. But I mean, considering the kind of piecemeal pieces that they just kind of shoved into coverage roles, I mean, I don't mind the look of it right now. Braden Mann could be an improvement. I thought Siposs earned himself the third call up and then let him go next week, personally. But I mean, maybe someone, maybe someone was going to sign Braden Mann, and how he took the jump. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's better than I expected, but there's still room for improvement. Jake Elliott, like you said, by far MVP for sure. But we need someone at punt return. Like, you cannot continue to act like that is not a need. When, look, there's been games won. Look at week 1 for the New York Jets. It won by a punt returner. Undrafted rookie. And I think he plays safety or corner, doesn't he? No, he's a receiver. Yeah. So, but even then, you can go out there and you can find someone who Britton Covey doesn't even touch the field offensively. No. That is the most frustrating thing to me. This man is literally your punt returner and not a damn thing else. And we have to watch that every single week of subpar punt return. And how he's got, those are two things: safety, punt returner. If you can get both all in one punch, which is probably unlikely, even better. A true starting safety returns punts you're unlikely to get. But I mean, Elliott's amazing. Elliott, that last year and this year so far has been just amazing. After, what was it, 3 years ago or 4 years ago when he had that really bad year and everyone wanted to get rid of him? It's good to see him turning it around and being an effective kicker, because, we've watched also teams lose based on a missed field goal or 2 missed field goals in a game. It's a tough job.
He's pretty much automatic beyond 50. And again, he missed the 55-yarder, but he's really clutch. He has a chance to be the Eagles, the greatest kicker in Eagles history. It's David Akers right now, but Elliott, he's still young enough that, and still has the leg that he can definitely become the top kicker in the history of the franchise. Dave, fire Howie. I want to know, Dave, what's it going to take for you not to fire Howie? Like, this team that he put together, they went to the Super Bowl last year.
If we get a Super Bowl this year, you can come on our review show and say fire Howie.
So I don't know. Howie's probably gonna have to win 10 Super Bowls before Dave finally gives it up. That Howie is doing his job again. I'm giving him a grace period because he's had a couple good draft classes. I've always been of the thing. I want him handling the money. I didn't want him to be the football guy, but he has proven that he's learned from his prior mistakes. All right, so the Eagles got the win. They're 2-0. Let's quickly talk about the NFC. Like, the NFC East, 3-2-0 teams: the Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders. The NFC South, 3-2-0 teams: the Falcons, the Saints, and the Buccaneers.
Who could have guessed that? If we had it our way, we wouldn't have an NFC South team in the playoffs on our preview show.
The Niners are 2-0. I think that's it in the NFC. And then over in the AFC, the Dolphins are 2-0. And there's one other team that's 2-0. I can't think of them off the top of my head, though.
But there was a stat today about the NFC, and it's the first time in I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
how
first time
long
in
that
NFL
7
history.
teams are
First time
two
in
and zero
NFL history that 7 teams are 2-0.
in the NFC. I think
Yeah,
it was just the NFC, but could have been both. But I thought I just saw the NFC.
yeah, it was because there's 7 in the NFC. What was the other team? It's the Dolphins and the Jaguars.
Could
No,
be the
Jaguars.
Jaguars. Let me look at the standings. I'm gonna
Jaguars are
pull
one
them
and
up while
one.
I'm just looking here. Dolphins, Ravens.
Ravens are 2-0. So Bengals are 0-2. Like
That
Burrow,
Ravens offense is looking good. So I
they
mean, I
actually have
don't
an
blame.
offensive coordinator now. So, but yeah, what are your thoughts on the
Who
undefeated
would have
teams and where the
thought? Who
Eagles
would have
where the
thought?
Eagles sit? Because where the Eagles sit right now in the NFC.
I mean, the NFC is a lot more competitive in the early going than I anticipated it being, but I do think there's still lots of room for these teams to fall off. Like, I do think the Commanders are better than you were giving them credit for, but I don't think they're a team that's gonna be any better than 9-8. Like I don't foresee this start being like the sign of a 12-5 season or something for the Washington Commanders. They made that pretty impressive comeback against the Broncos, who still just aren't looking right. They're looking a lot better than a Nathaniel Hackett-led Broncos, but definitely still not fully there as a team. Then, I mean, the Falcons, I mean, that's surprising. Like, I mean, they have resiliency. They have a ton of resiliency. They don't give up. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. The New Orleans Saints is who I had winning the division. The Bucks, I think they'll fall off as well. I just think there's a lot. The 49ers are going to be there. We know they're going to be there. The Cowboys, I think, will be there. I don't think they're going to sit here with a plus 60% point differential all season and be this amazing team. I think, when push comes to shove and the important games start happening, we know Dak Prescott can throw 4 picks in a game. We know Trevon Diggs can give up 150 yards in a game.
They beat the Giants, who didn't score for 6 quarters, and the Giants are overrated anyway. They beat a giant. They beat the Jets, who that defense deflated once Zach Wilson just couldn't move the football at all, and their offense line's bad. Dallas got Arizona this week. Arizona stinks. They'll blow them out. Then they got the Patriots, who might not win next week. Who knows? And then they have the Niners. So 3 weeks is when we'll get to see where both the Niners and Dallas stand, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got the Cardinals, Pats, then you got the 49ers, Chargers, Rams, who have been looking pretty good. Puka Nacua is looking like the stud wide receiver. Then you got the Eagles, Giants, Panthers. Like, you're going to have your mismatch of, like, games where you have easier games. Like, I can see the Cowboys ending up like 12-5 or something. Like, I can see it because you got the Giants
Cowboys
again. You got the Commanders twice. You got the Seahawks, who are showing that they're not that good. The Lions, that's a tough one for me. It could go either way. But like, you have these games where they could end up 12-5. I mean,
think the Eagles. Well, the Eagles and Cowboys are going to have roughly the same record. It's going to be 11-6, 12-5. 13-4. It's going to come down to tiebreakers. Whoever has, the Eagles have to at least split with Dallas. Got to find a way to beat Dak. But we'll see. And I also think that, that offense really hasn't been pressured yet. They're going to get into a game that Dak's going to have to make a play, or that McCarthy's going to have to call a good play. And that's where I think it's going to come back to bite them. So we'll see what happens, but like, I'm not worried about them yet. And again, we don't have to be the best team right now on September 19th. We want to be the best team come February 11th or 10th, whenever the Super Bowl is, and that's what I'm. If I'm the Eagles, I'm building towards.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I think that the Eagles and Cowboys, like, it could, they like you said, that game, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks is going to be a pretty important game, and then that game in week 14, I think it is, December 10th, is going to be an extremely important game as well. We have the Giants back to back to wrap up the season, which is going to be big to really wrapping up the division. Exactly. If we can be in a really good spot, so we go on a run, a gauntlet, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, 49ers, Cowboys. That's going to be a tough stretch of schedule, toughest stretch of the whole season. Then you get the Seahawks, Giants, Cardinals, Giants. if you can get through that gauntlet and be at 500 or above, like in that run of 5 games or 6 games I just named off, like, come out 3-2 fairly unscathed, and you hit that back stretch of the season, you can finish 4-0 and you can finish it off right there. Like, the schedule for the Eagles was kind of built in a way that it's like, yes, we have this crazy stretch of 5
They
games.
want to start off,
but
before the first 9 games before the bye, you want to win. You want to go 7-2, 8-1, something like that. Because if you can do that,
yeah, because we got the we got the Bucks, the Commanders, the Rams, the Jets, the Dolphins, Commanders, and the Cowboys, and then we hit the bye. Like, if we can come out with, say 2 losses out of that stretch, and then you go to your bye, and then you come out of the bye and you get that Chiefs, Bills, 49ers stretch. Like, if we can only be 2 losses and then only take 1 or 2 more losses in that stretch, that would make me feel really good, especially how we end up wrapping up the season and the teams we play.
Look, I'm pretty sure we're going to have this conversation every week, every Tuesday.
Absolutely.
And it's going to change. Dave says the NFC should just fold now. Apparently, this is the Cowboys' year for like the 25th straight year. That's what I hear anyway. I know we always hear they have the greatest defense of all time.
Yeah, I think people are comparing them to the 72 Bears already.
Blah, blah. What's up, Mr. Crockpot? How you doing? Thanks for joining us. All right, so as we're about to finish up here, our favorite segment every Tuesday, the unheralded player of the week in the National Football League. It doesn't have to be an Eagle. It can be anybody, and we don't want superstars. I don't want Justin Jefferson. I don't want Devontae Smith. Like, I don't want the guys that we anticipate, going off that are all pros. So, who is your unheralded player of the week for week 2 in the National Football League?
I wanted to go Jerome Ford. That injury to Nick Chubb was gruesome, but they lost. So I'm going with James Cook, going with another running back for the Buffalo Bills. The Bills crushed the Raiders after the Raiders started 1-0 against the lowly Broncos. James Cook, 17 carries, 123 yards, and 4 for 36 through the air. I was skeptical about him being like, a top running back in this league, like a bell cow back. But I mean, of the 35 carries, he had 50% of the carries plus throwing the targets. Of course, unfortunately, he didn't get the touchdowns because they put in, Damian Harris and Latavius Murray because James Cook was running all the way down the field before that. But I mean, at the end of the day, James Cook had a really good game, and he just adds another dimension to that Buffalo Bills offense. So, I mean, I really like him. He had a really good game. This will be the only time I get to use him because I think the rest of the year he's just going to have this incredible run, this really good year. I could see, 1,000 yards on the ground and close to 500 receiving yards. So this will be my only time to get to use him. So I'm going to use him now.
Mr. Crockpot says Jordan Mailata. I don't know. Would we consider him an unheralded player? I think he's really good.
I think he's just saying he's a winner for the week.
Winner for the week.
I don't know if it was like a winner based on the game.
He had the highest. He was the highest graded offensive lineman in
ever on PFF.
Ever. Like, that was crazy. That was crazy to see because he didn't have that great of a week 1, but he came out and he was bullying people week 2.
We've seen Mailata like go back and forth. Like he looked like he was having a rougher stretch there, like back end of last year, and it looked like it was continuing week 1, but. I mean, hopefully this is a turnaround because we know what Mailata can be. We know he was a major project coming into this league, and he's become a star and elite left tackle in this league. So,
Joe Winter says, barring serious injuries, I find it hard to predict wins and losses in the NFL. Eagles are a deep team, but key players are a problem. I agree, it is tough, but we like to do it. We like to play the prognostic. We like to be prognosticators and guess, and that's what makes it fun. And then the unheralded winner, Jordan Davis, sudden evolution into that is crazy. Like, he only played what, 14 snaps?
17, I think.
17 snaps, whatever. He's working his way onto being on the field a lot more. So my unheralded player of the week, I'm going a defensive player. I'm going Alex Highsmith for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He picked off the Deshaun Watson and returned it for a touchdown. He had 7 tackles, 1 sack, 1 interception, returned for a touchdown, and a forced fumble, which TJ Watt picked up and returned it for a touchdown. So Alex Highsmith, I know he's on that like the barrier of being not like unheralded and whatnot. This might be the only time I can use it, but he's looked good. But yes, I'm going Alex Highsmith, and the Steelers getting a big win yesterday. Mike Tomlin is never going to finish under 500. I'm almost, even if he has that terrible offensive coordinator with a terrible quarterback and Kenny Pickett. Dave says, tell you he's not a
Dave
winner
and
for the
Mr.
week.
Crockpot are always good. The hashtag Fire Howie is going to be in here as much as at least one James Harden comment from Mr. Crockpot or Dave.
And of course, I was right about everything about that crappy Sixers organization. I'm always right. They're never going to win. They have an overrated superstar who's not a superstar. Because M Bum is a bum. But yes, the Sixers are going to be irrelevant. I hope they're irrelevant the rest of my life. Hope they never get past the second round ever again.
And I find it crazy how that Cleveland Browns game on Monday night already has, like, I was watching First Take and stuff this morning, and they're already talking about, is a Deshaun Watson contract the worst contract ever when the guy's only played
when it was given out.
games. He's played 6 games.
It was the worst contract. Let's be real, though. It was the worst contract.
It was a terrible contract when it came out, because you should never fully guarantee a contract, because then you set that precedent. We're lucky a quarterback hasn't asked for it, but the quarterbacks right now are getting more guaranteed money than Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, they don't have to ask for a fully guaranteed contract because they're getting 250, 270 mil guaranteed, plus the extra change if they can continue to produce. So,
yeah. So we'll see. But that injury to I had Chubb in fantasy, and I needed him to kind of go off, and then he got hurt.
That was hard to watch.
I don't know. Did you ever? So do you remember Leonard Weaver?
No.
He was with the Eagles back in, I want to say it was 2010. He was the Eagles fullback. He had a career-ending knee injury that was very, very, very similar to what happened to Nick Chubb. And that's what I thought of when I saw it. So I am worried that Chubb's career could potentially be over, because this is the second time it's happened to that knee. So I am worried that, like, everything is gone. Like, all his ligaments are done. I am worried about his career. That was ugly.
It was heartbreaking, man, especially when the running backs are in this fierce debate to prove their value. And some of these major injuries and situations have popped up. Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb. There was some injuries from week 1. Like, the running backs are just one after the other. Jamal Williams got hurt this week and is expected to miss time. Like, they want to prove so valuable, and then you see some prove very valuable. You see, like, James Cook, you see these guys step up and be extremely valuable. But then you see these situations where Nick Chubb, the man got paid. The guy was getting the average annual pay was like $12 million. And obviously the guarantees make it adjusted. And then this ends up happening. Like, it breaks your heart, but, like, a really good running back can be extremely valuable. It's just these teams would rather pay, 10 or 12 other positions before they consider the running back.
The other person that I really feel bad for, and I know he kind of had bad things to say about Phil, but I feel bad for CJ GJ. He's out. He got a torn pec. He's out for the year. Like, his agent really played that wrong. So he was going.
Because now he sits there and he won a
contract in the offseason, and now he's done for the year. And who knows what kind of contract he'll get next year?
Well, exactly. Now he went on a prove it deal, and now he's got to go on another prove it deal that's likely going to be less valuable than this prove it deal. And now, like, I get CJ GJ still pretty young I think he's fairly young in regards to most people who are in their 3rd year or 4th year in the NFL. But I mean, you still have to think, like, that broke my heart too. When I saw that, I was like, man, I get the guy said some pretty low stuff against the Philadelphia and the fans here. But I mean, you hate to see injuries. Like, the injuries this year have been insane. They are just one after the other, just piling up. And Saquon Barkley, Deontay Johnson, it's all over the place, the injuries. Yeah. So,
yep. All right. So
this will shift everyone's strategy for preseason. Maybe you got to try and get your guys out a little more to loosen them up. I don't know.
Because Andy Reid played Patrick Mahomes, and that offense doesn't look that good. So, like, it's give and take. Like, I don't think that Dallas didn't really play their starters, and they've scored 70 points, and a lot of that was defense. But, like, it all depends on. You never know. You never know. It's a stroke of luck on what happens. All right, so we will be back on, if I'm not mistaken, Friday for the preview of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Monday night matchup, where we will go over the game plan and give our predictions for that week, for that game between the Eagles and the Buccaneers. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LGHerrell54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.